Tonight on Ukraine Today, for the first time ever, Ukrainian forces destroyed 2 Russian fighter jets using a sea drone. No safety guarantees. That's Ukraine's position on world leaders attending the Victory Cult parade in Moscow. Totalitarian symbols in the American capital. Russians staged a propaganda parade in Washington. A sensation! Donald Trump finally said what Russia must give up for peace. And hard to imagine a less qualified person. Who exactly John Bolton was talking about? All that and more in today's Ukraine Today. Hi there, we're from Ukraine. My name is Volodymyr Robchun. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's go. For the first time in history, a sea drone destroyed fighter jets. Ukrainian intelligence forces in the Black Sea took out 2 Russian Su-30s. It happened on May 2nd. The strike came from the Ukrainian Magura sea drone. Each of those jets cost around $50 million, and both went down in flames right into the sea. Here's how it happened. And here's what President Zelensky said about it.
The downing of a Russian military aircraft by our maritime drone was close. Proof of Ukraine's capabilities, our army conducted an operation on military facilities in Crimea very accurately. -1 more, the second Russian plane in a day. Also destroyed military depots.
Ukraine cannot guarantee safety to world leaders attending Russian May 9th military parade. President Zelensky said this during a press Q&A. He added, Ukraine respects the choices of those leaders, but Ukraine cannot protect them in Moscow. Let me remind you, the Kremlin offered a 3-day ceasefire just to hold this parade of victory madness. That's not about peace, that's just a manipulation. Especially since Russia rejected a much more serious US proposal, a 30-day ceasefire.
We are ready to move to a ceasefire as soon as possible, even from today, if Russia is ready to take mirror steps to complete silence, to a long silence of at least 30 days. This is a fair time frame to prepare the next steps. Russia must stop the war and stop the assaults, stop the shelling. As of now, the intensity of Russian strikes indicates nothing but the Russian desire to continue fighting.
Earlier, Zelensky also said that Ukraine's allies are tired of Russia's games and that Ukraine's military industry must speed up, especially in building ballistic missiles.
There were reports on the supply of our brigades, on the equipment of our units, and in great detail about the Ukrainian missile program, our missile development, our production. The task is to speed up the creation of our Ukrainian ballistics as much as possible. Our commitment is a clear and effective guarantee of security for Ukraine.
Back to that parade. Some European leaders are refusing to attend. Some say they are sick, others are just too busy. India is sending a lower-level delegation. Even Belarus's so-called president, Lukashenko, says he will be late. We'll got all the details in our report.
Moscow is buried in snow. Forest fires are raging in Russian regions. But preparations for Putin's parade do not stop for a single day. At the May 9 parade in Moscow, a list of prohibited items will be in effect. It contains 26 items, including eggs and vapes. May 9 is approaching, the temperature is rising higher and higher, so Putin's friends suddenly start getting sick.
I think that those who are definitely planning to come to Russia, yes, they indeed have much more bravery and determination than those who hide behind someone else's back and try to threaten anyone.
Taking sick leave is the easiest way when you can't publicly say no to the Russian dictator, but you understand that you need to avoid global condemnation.
I would also be glad to see you in Moscow for the celebrations on May 9th. We are expecting him in Russia for the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War or in World War II. We invited Mr. Inal Huyn to participate in the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War on May 9th.
Despite Putin's efforts, the self-preservation instinct has already kicked in for three leaders right before the festive parade. The president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, suddenly felt unwell during his trip to the USA and returned to Serbia, cancelling all scheduled meetings. Dr. Dincic from the Military Medical Academy said that the cause of Vučic's discomfort was a sudden increase in blood pressure.
For many years, I have been involved in monitoring the health of the president of Serbia. In the last 10 years, he has had similar problems 3 times due to high blood pressure. While in America, he felt chest pain, which was intense but brief. He received additional therapy, which was quite intensive.
Another European leader, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, also reported sudden health issues. Due to deteriorating health, Fico has cancelled his work schedule several times at the last minute in recent days. The alleged reasons are serious health problems Fico has faced after last year's assassination attempt. But is that really the case? Currently, in Slovakia and Serbia, despite the leaders' ailments, they confirm their intentions to visit Moscow to meet with Putin, despite threats from Brussels.
On the occasion of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War in World War II, we will celebrate this anniversary together.
Ukraine does not guarantee safety on May 9th. But these two swore to come to Putin to pay their respects. Now they are worried that he...
Now they are worried that their parade is in question. And they are right to be worried. But they should be concerned that this war continues. They need to end the war.
Additionally, the Indian Minister of Defense decided not to go to Moscow for the May 9th parade after Prime Minister Narendra Modi cancelled his visit to Russia. Now, India will be represented at the parade by Deputy Defense Minister Sanjay Seth.
For all of us, this is the biggest holiday, a sacred day. We honor the memory of 27 million who perished. Among them are grandfathers and great-grandfathers and those who live in Ukraine today. Therefore, this decision should unite and remind us that we are one people.
Recently, Lukashenko thanked Putin for the invitation to the parade in Moscow and confirmed that he cannot not attend. Then his press service announced that he will definitely be there, but might be late. For the third year in a row, Lukashenko leaves Putin immediately after the parade, not waiting for lunch. At the moment, the Kremlin has confirmed a 4-day visit by Xi Jinping to Moscow. Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Ukraine does not intend to provide security guarantees for visitors at the parade.
We cannot take responsibility for what happens on the territory of the Russian Federation. They provide you with security, and therefore we will not give you any guarantees, because we do not know what Russia will do on these days. It can take various, let's say, actions on its side, arson, explosions, and so on, and then blame us.
Kremlin spokesperson Peskov condemns Ukraine and its president for seeing the 3-day truce as a theatrical performance organized before the parade.
This is a test of Ukraine's readiness for peace. And we, of course, will be waiting for unequivocal final statements, and most importantly, actions aimed at de-escalating the conflict during the holidays. The regime's unwillingness to directly respond to Russia's proposal clearly shows that the ideological basis of today's Kiev regime is neo-Nazism.
On the eve of the parade, the Kremlin is concentrating all air defenses on Red Square.
I think everything will be concentrated on Red Square. We currently have good capabilities for producing long-range weapons. Therefore, if desired, we can plan such an operation.
These are Chinese military personnel in the center of Moscow. They are also preparing for May 9th, wanting to march in Putin's parade. St. George ribbons, pilot caps and Russian songs. Children from Mali are preparing for May 9th. Meanwhile, in a kindergarten in Dagestan, children were dressed in military uniforms and for some reason seated not in Ladas but in German Mercedes cars.
Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray! Hooray!
A similar story is happening on the streets of Voronezh.
Independent suspensions, automatics, engines with a power of 1 horsepower.
In Sevastopol, Victory trolley buses have started running. They feature St. George ribbons and the sculpture The Motherland calls. In the cities of Kazakhstan, they were not allowed to hold marches on May 9th, similar to Russia's Immortal Regiment.
On the 80th anniversary of victory, we support the Immortal Regiment March through the streets of Almaty and Kazakhstan.
Well, this is the height of cynicism. The destroyed Ukrainian Bakhmut E is covered with billboards for May 9th. In a word, victory frenzy. In Russia, May 9th has long lost its humanistic meaning. Over the last quarter century, it has transformed from a day of remembrance into a tool of Putin's state propaganda. Putin! Putin, the president of peace! Hooray!
Hooray!
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
And get this, on May 9th, Russia may shut down the internet in Moscow. They say it's for security reasons. Apparently, they already did a rehearsal and left half of the city offline. Honestly, if that's true, I wouldn't be surprised. Would you? Let us know what you think about this victory cult parade. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about this war. Click the link in the description and become our sponsor. Oh, and if you still haven't, like this video and subscribe. Now it's the perfect time. It really helps the channel. Nearly 100 Russians marched in a propaganda rally in Washington, D.C., the so-called Immortal Regiment. They brought totalitarian symbols and chanted in support of Russian aggression. But they weren't alone. Ukrainians showed up to protest. Some reporters were there, and here's what they saw.
Svetlana. Agent Vodnolang. Soviet flags with portraits of Stalin, St. George ribbons, carnations, and frames for portraits of grandfathers are being distributed centrally near the White House.
This is a disgrace. It's an absolute horror that they are free to do this in our country, while their compatriots are terrorizing, killing civilians, and kidnapping children.
On the 80th anniversary of the capitulation of Nazi Germany in World War II, Russian embassies around the world received instructions from Moscow to celebrate on a grand scale. Although for the past 3 years of war in the capital, the agents of Russism were underground.
They were already there before COVID, but very small, about 25 to 30 people. I looked at the site, and mostly it was just some women, old women, right? And now they've gathered a few men, some remnants, here.
This small Ukrainian-American group came to draw attention to truly relevant issues.
We are not beasts.
We are not beasts, we are people.
You are creatures.
You are beasts.
Rocha kills. Rocha kills.
Rocha kills!
Rocha kills!
Rocha kills!
A lone liberal Russian tried to explain to his compatriots where they were wrong.
I came to you to tell you
that Nazi Germany, don't touch with your hands.
Get out of here, you ram! You ram!
Russians initially pretend that the Ukrainian protest amuses them, urging to speak the language and join them. But the woman in the kokoshnik still ran to complain about the TSN film crew. A police officer explained to her that journalists have the right to do their job.
She is asking questions because she is a journalist. She is not with that group.
So we can go and ask them questions too, if there are journalists in our group. Do you have journalists in your group? Yes, actually we have many journalists. I'm just asking. Of course, there were no journalists with credentials among the Russians, but the police still asked the participants of the Ukrainian protest to move to a safe distance. The Russians line up in a column, and the victory frenzy begins.
Katyusha went out to the shore, to the riverbank, and gazed at the flowing water. Went out.
If you know the words, let's sing.
I did take the opportunity to ask a few questions. Why are Russians killing Ukrainians? Do you support this? Let me enjoy the walk. Ukrainians are also killing Russians. And who attacked Ukraine? That doesn't matter. They bombed Donbas for 8 years. However, I was a bit luckier with my conversation partner than this American who came out with a homemade sign against Katyushas.
Another 10,000 of your rapists will join the immortal regiment today.
Yes, yes, hooray! 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 Hooray!
Victory will be ours.
Hooray, hooray! Participants of the victory frenzy were not only allowed their gathering in Washington, but several streets were also closed off, so they could move unimpeded from Lafayette Square to the World War II Memorial.
The Ukrainian protest accompanies the Victory Frenzy March with its own slogans.
To me, they are just funny and pathetic. Many people say, oh, I hate those Muscovites so much, I just despise them. Because look at what their government is doing to them and so on and everything else. And they like it.
Upon reaching their destination, the Russians sang and danced a little, but couldn't fully enjoy their walk due to loudspeakers from the Ukrainian side.
I have been to all, to put it mildly, protests. And when I was little, I used to go. My dad always took me against Russia, against the Soviets. So I've been doing this for 60 years.
It's unclear whether the Russians didn't plan any speeches or couldn't arrange them due to sound interference, but they decided to end their gathering by kneeling before the American memorial. And they left. From Washington, United States, Olga Koshulenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN, 1+1, Marathon, United News.
Meanwhile, in the UK, a real parade honoring the 80th anniversary of victory over Nazism in the World War II. And the Ukrainian armed forces are taking part, because today they are the ones protecting Europe. And now, get ready. Donald Trump finally said what Russia must do to get peace. In an interview with American journalist Kristen Welker, he said this.
Russia would have to give up all of Ukraine, because what Russia wants is all of Ukraine. And if I didn't get involved, they would be fighting right now for all of Ukraine. Russia doesn't want the strip that they have now. Russia wants all of Ukraine.
Consistency and coordination clearly not the strong side of the current US administration. So wait, now it turns out Putin wants to take over all of Ukraine. No way! Then why is the US Vice President J.D. Vance talking about just a few miles of Ukrainian territory?
I think for the Ukrainians, yes, of course they're angry that they were invaded, but are we going to continue to lose thousands and thousands of soldiers over a few miles of territory this or that way? I hope both of them come to their senses.
So what is it? A few miles or the entire country? Is Putin a good guy or a bloodthirsty invader? This lack of consistency is exactly why US policy keeps getting stuck. Now, to be fair, Trump did say the US is closer to one side in the talks, but he didn't say which side. He also mentioned he might walk away from the talks. Feels like the White House is following this strategy. If it works, we are geniuses. If it fails, it's everyone else's fault. And I see three phases of this strategy. Phase 1. Blame the predecessors. Trump says, this is Biden or Obama's war. Phase 2. We are just getting started. Remember what he said in Michigan? You haven't seen anything yet? We are just getting started. Phase 3. We tried, but everyone got in the way. And now, this.
There's tremendous hatred, just so you understand. Look, Kristen, we're talking tremendous hatred between these two men and between, some of the soldiers, frankly, between the generals. They've been fighting hard for 3 years.
Hatred? Seriously? Where did that hatred come from? In 2014, Russia started this war. In 2022, Putin launched a full-scale invasion. The Russian forces kill civilians, destroy cities, bomb schools and hospitals, and Ukrainians are supposed to love them? Yes, there is hatred. And if that's what's stopping the West from pressuring Russia, then phase 3 comes sooner than I expected. Remember the New York Post story about Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, and how he raised eyebrows in the administration? Well, now we have got a follow-up. John Bolton, former Trump's advisor and UN ambassador, spoke out. And trust me, Bolton didn't even try to be diplomatic. Words like potential disaster and how to imagine a less qualified person were said out loud. Here's the clip.
I think Witkoff reports directly to Trump. That's the advantage he has. He will do exactly what Trump says. And I think this is a disaster in the making, a disaster on the Ukraine-Russia front, a potential disaster on the Iran front. I mean, if you look at Witkoff, he doesn't know anything about Ukraine, he doesn't know anything about Russia, he doesn't know anything about Iran, he doesn't know anything about nuclear weapons, he doesn't know anything about arms control and non-proliferation, and he doesn't know anything about state-to-state negotiation. Really, it's hard to imagine a less qualified person, and yet he is Trump's personal envoy. I just think this is a huge risk, and you have neither before a national security advisor or a secretary of state who had any control over him.
We'll keep watching this story closely. And finally, Skype is done. Thanks for watching. That's it for today. Thank you for staying with us. We read your comments and we feel your support. Strength to our defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Like, subscribe, and see you soon.